Hey guys, welcome back to the Combat College, where we offer a free, world-class education to all warriors, all the time. My name's Cody Chilson, and I'll be your instructor for the day. Today's lesson is So we've learned our stance and how to move around with it. And we've learned about telegraphs. Now we're going to break into how to reach out and touch somebody. But before we get into that craziness, I have to give a shout out to the Escrima system and the late and great master Edgar Salite for inspiring the way we utilize our long-range striking mechanics at the Combat College. For those of you who are unaware, Escrima is an FMA system founded by the late Penang Guru Edgar Salite, who founded Escrima after he became successor to multiple FMA masters. His long-range fighting techniques were taught to him by none other than the legendary escrimador Jose Caballero of the De Campo 1-2-3 system. Guru Salite left an amazing legacy in his system and in his students, such as Guru Dan and Santo, the founding members of the Dog Brothers, and many, many more. Check out their link at the end of the video, and do yourself a favor. Expose yourself to Escrima. You will not regret it. Now for today's lesson. And today's strike will be Now the word Witik is a Tagalog word that translates into a wrist snap strike. And in its simplicity, a Witik is just that, a snapping strike. Similar to a jab in boxing, Witik is used as an opener to combinations because it's quick, efficient, and stuns the opponent, which clears the way for heavy killing blows. Today we're going to touch on some of the lesser known and practiced aspects of the Witik. After today, your Witik will be non-telegraphic and will be shaped in such a way that it has a built-in shield, so you don't have to learn how to block if you don't want to. Before we do that, however, in order to put you in the right mindset, I'm going to teach you the Combat College's official second rule of combat.
Show up for war early.
Now let's do a visualization exercise. I want you to visualize in your mind's eye that you're getting ready to have a skirmish with a neighboring tribe, and you're heading down to the battlefield. You get there and it's empty. How do you feel? I bet you're starting to plan how to deal with your enemy, considering what tactics you want to employ, how to utilize the environment to force your opponent into uncomfortable positions and destroy them. But what if you showed up and saw this?
Warriors! Assemble!
Would you be the one in control, or would you be scrambling to formulate a countermeasure? In this kind of an environment, you would have to set up around what your opponent's already done. When you show up for war early, your opponent is playing catch-up because action beats reaction. At the Combat College, whenever we strike, we start from a coiled, loaded position. Because you're ready to strike, your weapon can go off like a gun, while your opponent takes time to generate power. In this sense, you have shown up for war early, and your opponent will have to play catch-up while you go first. Now let's talk about the geometry of how to load your Witik. There are 3 rules. The first is forearm parallel to the ground. Second, the tip of the weapon needs to point back at a 45-degree angle. And the third is that your elbow has to stay in. Notice how this creates a triangle, also known as the strongest shape in existence. In geometry, all 3 angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. This particular triangle is called a right triangle because it has a 90-degree angle at the base. When your forearm is parallel to the ground and your elbow is in, it creates a 90-degree angle. And when you point your tip back at a 45, it locks the triangle in. This triangle shape allows you to strike with full power, and here's why. Now let's measure the distance of an unloaded position versus the loaded position created by this triangle. Cool, huh? All the power is there because all of the distance is hidden in the shape of the triangle. This is the reason why Chinese and Filipino arts talk about the triangle with reverence, because it allows you to execute high-end physics. Now this triangle shape is portable, and it works on every angle. See? It's just a matter of keeping the triangle together and rotating it to where you want it to be. However, if you lose the shape, you'll lose the power to strike from a loaded position. Now, if you want to strike low, bend your legs and don't allow your arm to drop below 180 degrees. For every inch you go below that angle, you lose an inch of reach and you leave your neck totally exposed. Remember, if you want the strike to be non-telegraphic, then the weapon moves before the body does. A trick I use on people when fighting is I load my triangle, but I sink my hand back. This forces an attacker to have to fully extend to hit my hand, leaving them extended and exposed while I'm coiled and covered. The alternate way to load the triangle is to let your opponent do it for you, using an energy profile known as elastico.
Elastico.
Elastico is a Tagalog word, which translates into rubber band art. It's the art of absorbing energy and whipping it back at someone, much like a rubber band. If you leave your stick out in front of you and keep a firm grip with the bottom two fingers and relax your wrist at the same time, the kinetic energy from your opponent's strike will bend the tip back to the 45-degree angle that's needed to lock that triangle. When the opponent comes in strong, the cross energy from the strike will naturally turn the triangle, which will uncoil the shot. Remember though, if you don't keep your elbow in or your forearm parallel to the ground, you're going to lose the power of the triangle. Now let's talk about how to strike in a way where you don't need to know how to block. First, let's look at the anatomy of your weapon. There are 3 parts to a melee weapon. If you roughly divide your weapon into thirds, each part of the weapon has an offensive and defensive implication. The tip portion of the weapon is what does the killing the vast majority of the time in a fight, due to the fact that it's used at long range. And when slashing, you get maximum energy transfer, similar to the sweet spot of a baseball bat. In order to activate the natural shield, when you Witik, aim from the point of the weapon, which is the sweet spot, and adjust your strike so that the tip extends and stops at a 45-degree angle. This causes the sweet spot of the weapon to hit, but also causes something else interesting to happen. Because it's an angle, any incoming strike that you may come into contact with will derail and follow the line of the angle. This is known as ramping. If an attack is coming in and you don't intercept it, because your weapon's already out in front of you, you can easily flinch with your weapon and intercept the incoming attack by adjusting your line. If for some reason your tip is committed, the secondary defense is the bottom third of your weapon, which should still be protecting your center line, so long as your tip is angled at 45 degrees. Adopting the 45-degree angle allows you to strike in a way which keeps you geometrically guarded. By giving you full power with no openings, it's what we refer to in the biz as having your cake and eating it too. I'm going to show you a couple of really great drills, but let's have a heart-to-heart first. This is an important conversation to have in Kali and in Kung Fu as well, due to the ginormous amount of flow drills that exist in these arts. The only reason we have drills in martial arts is so we can isolate a handful of fighting mechanics and refine them. It's similar to sharpening and polishing a blade. Being good at drills does not make you good at fighting. The only way to get good at fighting is to spend more time fighting, and then use drills as a tool to push through a plateau. What we can do, though, is choose the kind of drills that borderline the fighting process. This minimizes the transition into real life. A good drill to work with a partner to develop the non-telegraphic aspect of this Witik is the tell drill. Have your partner hold up his weapon or hand and strike out at it. If your partner sees you move before the strike lands, have them pull the target away and tell you what the telegraph was. This trains you as a feeder to become aware of your own telegraphs and fix them. At the same time, it trains the receiver in the drill to become hypersensitive to telegraphs. The best way to read other people's telegraphs is to shave them out of your own body mechanics using this kind of a process. The next level of the drill is to have your partner take the same loaded position as you. Try to hit him without a telegraph. But if they see you move, they get to hit you and then tell you what they saw. This trains you, as the feeder, to execute under stress and recover when you mess up using the flinch block that's built into your strike. And it teaches the receiver not to take any and hit you immediately if they feel threatened, which is what you do in a real fight anyways. One of my favorite sayings about drills comes from Guru Dhananasanta, who states that it's important to train the reflex before you train the technique. And for those of you who didn't know or weren't listening earlier, one of Guru Dan's Kali instructors was Lamego Escrima's own Penang Guru Edgar Salute. In fact, Dhananasanta was appointed the vice president of Lamego Escrima after Guru Salete's passing. See that? We've come full circle. Oh, and if you don't know who Guru Dan is, he's the highest ranking instructor in Jeet Kune Do, promoted by this man. And if you don't know who this guy is, watch these. Wait, no. Don't watch that one. How did that get in there? Don't. Actually, you know what? Check it out. The fight scenes in the tower were phenomenal.